You know, I know that they have to kind of put those little goofy trivia tracks and commercials before the movie starts, but sometimes it feels inappropriate. I mean, it's like watching a stand-up comedian before you go into a Holocaust museum. So, 12 Years a Slave is based on a memoir by Solomon Northup, who was a free black man in 1840. He was well educated, he was well spoken, he had a great family, and at first you're like, you know, life wasn't so bad in 1840. Then he gets kidnapped and sold into slavery, and that's when you realize that the North in 1840 and the South in 1840 were basically like heaven and hell. So he's sold into slavery and he's rightfully outraged. He says, I am educated and I can read and write and I have a family. And the slaves he's with are like, shut up, they don't care, they will kill you. Then the movie is essentially a historical Dante's Inferno as Solomon spends 12 years as a slave in the South. And first he's sold to Benedict Cumberbatch. When I first saw him, I was like, Sherlock, no, not you. He is this Baptist preacher character, and he's pretty nice to Solomon. I mean, he gives him gifts. I mean, he treats him fairly, and you're thinking, this guy isn't such a bad guy, except for the part where he owns people. And that's the thing, back then, even the nicest slave owner was still a slave owner. Cumberbatch even says, you may be a free man, but there's literally nothing I can do because I will be risking my own life. Paul Dano shows up for a small role in this film, and if you know anything about Paul Dano, you know exactly what's gonna happen to him in this movie. He's gonna be slimy, and he's gonna scream a lot. We need someone completely despicable. Paul Dano. So Solomon is sold to a new slave master, the new slave owner being the devil, played by Michael Fassbender. I'm just saying that no on-screen portrayal of the devil is as scary as Michael Fassbender is in this movie. I mean, he gives a great performance in this movie, but he is one evil, psychotic Redbeard. And it's at this plantation that the horribleness and cruelty really get shifted into high gear. These people are treated like cattle, and it's extremely violent and unflinching in its brutality. But it's not just the violence, the humiliation and the degradation that these people had to suffer through on a daily basis is the real gut punch of this film. People are hanging by their necks from trees, and there are just little kids playing in the background, and it's just terrifying. It's impossible to talk about this movie without talking about the main actor who plays Solomon Chiwetel Ejiofor, and I'm probably pronouncing that name wrong, sorry. But he is amazing in this movie. The movie hinges upon his reaction of what's going on, and the look of horror and fear in his eyes in certain scenes is just haunting. There's a scene where the camera just like holds on his face for several seconds, and you can tell that he is just contemplating what his life is now. And it's honestly one of the more moving moments that I've seen in a film in a long time. There were several older people in the movie theater, and I'm not discriminating against age, but if you have the idea that this is a nice historical family film to go see, unless you are comfortable with seeing Schindler's List with your family, I would proceed with caution. At the same time, I don't want to dissuade anyone from seeing this movie. The acting is great, the directing is great, the cinematography is fantastic, the score is really good, it's really chilling and other times very heartbreaking. This is just an all-around, almost perfectly made film. And probably the most important thing about it is that we have very little in the way of slavery films that really drive home the horrendousness of it all. It goes beyond being an entertaining time at the movies and ends up being a piece of art. It is an important and relevant film that people should see. Look, it's okay if you don't cry during movies, but you will cry during this one. I'm just saying that you will. Oscars, look out, because 12 Years a Slave is coming to take all your statues.